Oh, I'm so excited about this episode, dude.
Yeah.
I've been waiting to do this episode my entire life.
That's
incredible.
right
now. I'm going to tell you that right now. I've been waiting to do this my entire life.
That as a baby and as a child, you had the foresight and foreskin to know that 4 years would be a thing and that you would eventually have to do an episode of Tool.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. What's going on, folks? Arm and Hammer here.
What up?
That's Chase. Chase and I are going to talk about Tool today.
Tool. As in tools.
As in
I got a wrench in the car.
Screwdrivers.
Oh, it's not a wrench. It's like a ratchet. Is that what they're called? It's a racket wrench? A socket wrench.
A socket wrench? You got a socket wrench in the car?
Yeah, and I did the thing where I bought the specific head that I needed for it.
Yeah.
The specific socket.
Yeah.
But I didn't buy the right socket wrench.
So it doesn't fit.
So it's like a 1/2 inch socket wrench.
Yeah.
And I got a 1/4 inch socket.
Damn, dude. Tool sucks.
I've been bamboozled.
That's not the type of tool we're actually going to be talking about. Hard to believe.
Listen, also, you shouldn't try to look like you know what the fuck you're doing at Home Depot and
never.
walk out confidently after purchasing those 2 items.
No.
And telling people at the register that you don't need help, that you know what you're doing.
Oh, no. That's bad. That's a bad mistake. See,
I meant to do this.
When my wife and I bought this house, we probably went to Home Depot 15 times in 3 days. Because every time we would go, it'd be like, all right, this is all we need. And then we'd come back home and be like, fuck! So, yeah, I no longer go to Home Depot. You'd think after like the 3rd time I would have learned, but like a solid weekend of just going back and forth. Yeah,
it's enough
cool.
for a year. Several years.
I fucking learned my lesson, man. Now I go in there, I wander around, I give myself 10 minutes to find what I'm looking for. If I can't find what I'm looking for, I grab a guy. And it's like, you're going to help me. I have a list.
Yeah.
Here are the things I'm looking for. At least tell me what aisles I can find them on so I can
100%.
go search for them myself. Sometimes I'm even in the same aisle and I'm just like, you know what? I'm not going to look at any of these shelves.
Yeah.
Hey, lady, where can I find this thing? And she's like, it's right next to your left hand. Oh, fuck. Okay, perfect.
Shit.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. You saved me 40 minutes. That literally actually happened.
Yeah,
not too long ago.
You cannot.
It's a very specific story.
You cannot treat Home Depot like a clothes shopping place. You have to treat it like a library. You gotta go and immediately get help, or else you're never finding what the fuck you're looking for.
That's a really good point. That is a very good point. You know what you don't treat as a library? Tool albums. We're going to talk about the band Tool. Tool band.
Tight. Tool band.
Which is like Tool time.
Would not be nearly as effective as a name.
No, it would
if
not.
they went by the Tool band.
This is a podcast that has now been made both possible and timely because Tool has a new album coming out at the end of this month, bro.
Fear Inoculum.
That's right, and he pronounced it correctly. Nailed it.
I'm all about getting inoculated to fear.
Inoculum, yeah. They released a single, the Fear, like the title track, Fear Inoculum.
Self-titled.
It's great. It's very Tool. But what we're gonna do today, maybe we'll talk about that song at some point. But what we're gonna do today, because next week the album
You forgot the other reason why this is possible.
Oh, because they finally put all their shit onto streaming services.
You mean all the what the fuck were they even on before that? They had like they invested in something different, like
Betamax.
See,
they did.
That's
invest
that
in
shit
Betamax.
that they were into.
That's true.
They don't want to compromise the sound quality, so they're on Betamax.
Yeah. Well, to be fair,
it's okay if you have all of them just lying around that you bought all of them.
Yeah.
I'm not going to judge you.
I have the vinyls right there in that shelf back there. But
dogs making out in the background.
Yeah, the dogs are just wrestling right now. It's okay. They're just really pumped about Lateralus when we get to there. The thing is, like, Tool has been kind of MIA from releasing albums for 13-ish years at this point. Last album came out 2006. That was 10,000 Days. they've been touring, kind of, sort of, since then. But every one of them has been busy with other stuff. And they also had some like internal sort of disagreements as to what they were going to do with their music digitally. And then they had all these lawsuits that they had to deal with. So that has been the reason why it's been taking so long. I'm sure there's some fucking Tool nerd out there who's like, well, excuse me, actually, it's because of this person having them to contract with this person. And it's like, you know what, nerd? I don't fucking care. I used to care, but I'm now a grown-ass man. I'm not a child anymore. I don't give a fuck about their contract disputes. I just want the music. That's all I care about.
Interesting.
I want the music, and I want to be able to give them money for it. That's all. That's all I want.
That's great.
Is that really too much to ask for? I don't think so.
I think it's great that you want to give them money.
Absolutely, I want to give them money for it. Tool has brought so much enrichment to my life. I'll give them money to go see them live.
Yeah, I'll do that.
I'll buy their t-shirts. Probably never wear them. It's great though. I have several of their tour t-shirts in my closet right now.
Just never wear.
And I can't get myself to get rid of them because I'm like, this kind of means something to me, maybe.
It's weird. I think we all have shirts like that.
Yeah. But either way, what we're gonna do is, so Chase, tell me a little. Oh fuck! Hold on a second. I never started recording. Rookie mistake.
You want to slap the record button now?
Yeah, I should probably do that, huh?
We can cut all the chuff. Just get straight to it. Extended cut on YouTube.
Wow. Alright, now that we're recording, and that 8.5 minute intro that we did earlier.
That was great.
Let's go ahead and let's see if we can restart the show in a different way. How about that? Alright. I'm super excited.
Fuck yeah.
Now that we're actually recording, and if you're listening to this, you missed about 7.5, maybe 8 minutes of Chase and I just kind of shooting shit about Home Depot and tools.
And if that sounds like content that you're missing out on,
you can watch it on Chase's channel. Chase before he has it there. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about Tool. We're going to talk about the band Tool.
I'm in.
And the moment at which I realized that we actually weren't recording what we were talking about was when I was going to ask Chase what his experience with Tool was. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Chase, tell me what your experience with Tool has been / is.
Wow, this is the first time I've heard this question. So I'm totally unprepared. Yeah, man. Tool. So my uncle was a giant fan of Primus, Tool, A Perfect Circle, and Talking Heads.
I'd say sounds pretty awesome.
They're probably his 4 favorite bands. I might be doing them like an injustice there, but my experience with Tool is purely from him exposing me to what he deemed was safe to expose me to, that my mother wouldn't get pissed off about.
Fair enough.
So a lot of what I understand about Tool was from that time, and him showing me like the music videos, which totally were not cool to my still developing brain.
No.
So I believe it was. There's a music video where it's like they have some type of parasite growing on them. They're like weird clay animation.
Schism. That's the schism.
It's schism.
Yeah.
And I remember being
pull it out of their.
Yes.
Yep.
I remember being disturbed by that music video for weeks and months on end.
Of course.
It is radically disturbing.
It is a disturbing music video.
I also remember the music video for Prison Sex pretty well.
Understandably.
But also I remember how kick-ass Prison Sex sounds.
Good. So you got the message.
Yeah, so it was it was a fine balance. And I remember just liking Tool, but I always felt like I just kind of missed the bubble. Like I didn't have any friends that listened to Tool at school, so there's no one like to go talk to about it.
Yeah.
There wasn't new albums coming out that my friends and I were excited about. It was like also before like things were instantly available, right? Like if I wanted to listen to Tool, I had to burn a CD from like my uncle's like computer and to just have
The one.
The one.
Yeah.
I couldn't just instantly flip through their whole
That's a good
collection.
point. That's a good point. So around what year was this? Do you remember?
I would have been in like 6th grade. So
I don't know, what was that, like 2011? I don't
that would have been like 2004.
Okay. Alright, so now I'm starting to understand kind of the era within which...
Yeah, 2004 through like 2007 was
Okay.
probably like my introduction to it.
Fair enough. So, I had a similar kind of sort of, like my older brother really loved
My
Tool.
uncle also told you about it.
Yeah, your uncle also told me.
Dude's got reach.
My older brother really loves Tool, and he introduced me to it when I was a freshman in high school. So I was probably like 12 at the time. This was like 2001. I was like 8th grade freshman in high school, like 2001. It was like right when Lateralus came out, so it must have been 2001, 2002. And Tool was actually one of the first concerts I ever went to.
That's badass.
Yeah, it was sick. He picked me up from school, and we drove to Bakersfield, which is like a 2-hour drive.
Holy shit.
Yep, and then we went directly to the concert, and he drove us back. And it was fucking radical. It was one of the best shows I've ever seen. We still talk about it to this day. Since then...
You're getting choked up. It's okay.
Choked up. Since then, I think I've seen Tool, I don't know, 15 or 20 times.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I've never seen them once.
Yeah, I've seen them a lot.
I haven't seen them.
You should go see them.
I'm watching.
They're incredible. They're incredible live. They have like a really great energy. Their music's fantastic. I really fell in deep. Like I went hardcore. I had no one to talk to about it.
So you almost like, would you say you believed in the almost religious sect that is built up around Tool, like the whole ideology around what they think of society and other people?
In a way, yes. I definitely was aware that like the stereotypical Tool fan was kind of a douche. Like I was very aware of that. And the reason why I was aware of that is because I was very active on the Tool band forums.
Oh.
Very active. And so I interacted with them constantly. And as like a 12-year-old on the internet, a 12-year-old who's like, you know, well-spoken and maybe a little too smart for his own good, both smart in like the intelligence sense, but also smart in like the being an asshole on the internet sense, I definitely got into a lot of internet arguments over like whatever, anything. It was like lyrics, let's argue. Story behind something, let's argue about that too. I don't care. And so I realized that the average Tool fan is pretty fucking. It's just.
They wound up pretty tight, you'd say.
Yeah, they're wound up pretty tight. They're like obsessed with everything Tool in a way that is exhausting. It's exhausting to be, and it's exhausting to be around, right? And that's why I was saying, while in the forgotten 8 minutes of this podcast that I didn't hit the record button, I'm over being like the hyper analytical, like everything Tool does is the best thing ever, like super insufferable fan. And I'm more into like, you know what, I'm ready for them when they tour, I'm ready for their music to come out, I'm ready to pay them for, you know, their work type thing.
Nice.
But that said, I guess to answer your question, kind of yes. You know, Tool's lyrics and music really influence the way that I view the world. There's still lots of things, like even now, I just recently re-listened to all their albums and I haven't been able to do that in years because they were not on streaming services.
Right.
And now, as like a fucking adult, I'm like listening to this stuff, I'm like, oh, that's where I got that from. Cool. I'm really glad that it wasn't like fucking Korn or Limp Bizkit that I got into as a very like malleable young man.
Yeah.
Instead, I actually learned, I think, what I consider to be really valuable life lessons and really interesting perspectives on things.
Yeah, it's a trip. I think your Tool, my Tool was Kanye West.
Fair enough.
I mean, I was that person except for the Kanye West.
Tool is the Kanye West of prog hard rock metal. I don't know.
Yeah.
So here's how we're going to organize this, because I don't really know a good way of doing it. because I can't just use every single song they've ever played, which is what I want to do.
You could, but we also, well, I don't have time for that shit.
No.
I don't know if you have time for that shit.
I have time for it. You don't have time for it. And again, like I said in the forgotten 8 minutes of this, I've been waiting to do this my entire life.
This is what you were born to do.
This is what I was born to do, to talk about Tool. But what we're going to do is what I think is a relatively simple way of doing things, which is just kind of pick 1 or 2 songs from each album.
Okay.
Because there's only 4 albums that are out on Spotify right now. It's in order. It's Undertow, Aenima, Lateralus, and 10,000 Days.
Yeah.
And
I feel confident being able to pick 2 songs from each, except for 10,000 Days. I'm not super familiar with anything from 10,000
okay.
Days.
I mean, listen. Either
Other
way,
than 10,000.
I know that your sort of like listenership of Tool is not as extensive as mine, but you've at least experienced pretty much everything that they've gotten out there.
Yeah.
Although there are a couple songs that I'm very confident that you have not gotten into. And I want to start with one of them, which is one I asked you about right before we started filming.
Yeah.
And it's called Bottom, and it's off of Undertow. And it goes something like this. Okay. So Tool's first album, Undertow, is a much more like metal, grungy, heavy fucking sound.
I really appreciate the sound on both like Sober and Prison Sex. The songs I'm most familiar with from this, they all have like that like chest caving in type of bass feel to them.
Yeah, it's like fighting music.
Yeah, it also feels very hateful.
And the lyrics are super fucking dark. A lot of it's about like abuse. A lot of it is about like not being able to get away from like growing up abused, that sort of thing. It's perfect for the time, like the early 90s, right? It's a very telltale early 90s. However, the reason why I picked this song, and the reason why I asked you whether you've heard this song, is because this song features yet another act, I guess, from the early 90s, Henry Rollins. Now we didn't hear him. We didn't hear him the minute or so that we listened to that song, but I'm gonna go ahead and skip forward. We're gonna fucking hear him.
Okay.
And yeah, this is the type of thing that I think people really latched onto when they first heard Tool.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, so that's a real dark song. Shit adds up at the bottom, dead inside, naked and fearless. A whole lot of really happy lyrics in there.
Shit. Maynard sounds so much like Rick just in that song. Just as he was coming, Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty. Just as he was coming, screaming over top of Henry Rollins there at the end. He sounds just like a soundbite of Rick yelling at Morty or Jerry.
That he's dead inside?
Anything. Just anytime Rick yells, he sounds like Maynard.
Yeah. That's a pretty cool thing.
It's probably intentional.
It's a pretty cool thing. So I would say if you're going to listen to a song, well, you've listened to about half of it so far.
That's definitely a good one
But that's a good one to listen to. This also shows kind of the relationship I think that Tool had with their contemporaries. Because
I don't think anyone else did that, right?
Yeah, not a lot of other people were doing that sort of thing. But Tool had a really good relationship with other metal acts in that time period. Because they all, Tool came up in fucking LA.
Right.
That's one of the reasons why their next album is so much about how much they hate it. But they came up in LA, and that sort of like grinding through the fucked up sort of bar scene and like music venue scene to like make it, and then seeing sort of the sordid underbelly that was the music industry, I think is something that they and other metal acts from that time like bonded over, about how shitty it was to become like a best-selling artist, like
brothers in commiserating.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They even actually, there's a really good Maynard appearance on a Rage Against the Machine song from around the same time.
Didn't know that. I didn't know Maynard was on a Rage song.
We'll listen to that.
I've missed this whole scene.
Yeah, we'll listen to that later. Oh, that's really good. That's another one that you'll add to your regular
listenings.
Your regular listenings. But
this bottom one, I feel like, is going to be a real Office.
This is a good one.
On the Office Sonos.
It's one of those that you blast really loud, like loud enough that when you're wearing cans, the people near you can hear it. and you're just like happily editing, whatever it is, and everyone's like, "Is he okay?
It's like, no.
Is everything okay?" No.
Everything
is not
in my
okay.
head.
You mentioned Swamp Song, you mentioned Prison Sex and Sober.
And Sober.
Yeah, those are Sober's probably the single most famous song off of this album.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say it's the most famous Tool song, but it's definitely one of the more famous ones.
Yeah.
Prison Sex is a really good one. Let's go and listen to a little bit.
I would pick Prison Sex over top of Sober.
Yeah, let's go and listen to Prison Sex a little bit.
So good.
Yeah, that's a fucking amazing song. And again, it really leans into, the name of the album is Undertow. Undertow is kind of like usually something that happens at the beach. Do you know what undertow is?
Yeah, isn't it the current that rips
Pulls
you back out?
Exactly. It pulls you back away from the shore. And that song is, one of the lyrics that we just heard was like, "Do unto others what has been done to you. I'll do unto others what has been done to me." And it's like, I think it really talks to
keeping the cycle going.
Keeping that really fucked up cycle going of child abuse is my guess is what it's
Yeah. I don't know how they make that sound at the beginning. The
like the diving board sound or the
I guess it sounds a little bit like a diving board sound and then like a cranking of something.
Yeah.
But that mixed along with the album cover of this album, which is a exposed rib cage. At least that's what I think it is.
It looks like an exposed rib cage.
Just makes me think of someone breaking someone's ribs and then ripping their sternum apart.
Hell yeah.
Which is like the violence that this song kicks out.
Yeah. And
it's just heavy, man.
I know we've been talking about Undertow for a while now, but I wanted to point one more song out on this album, because this album, like I mentioned, is their heaviest album probably, because it's also their angriest album. It's like early on, I think they all were kind of very much affected by metal. It was 93. They had just done Opiate, their first EP came out 91. They were touring Lollapalooza. So they had really experienced that back end of hair metal from the 80s, and were just so fucking over listening to Poison.
We're talking about Disgustipated.
Yeah, so we've been talking about Undertow for a while now, but other than being this super angry album about child abuse and kind of a response to the aggression, or sort of a response to how lame hair metal was in the 80s and stuff, they also have a big sense of humor.
Right.
And
right.
Disgustipated, the final track on this album, is a great example of Maynard's sense of humor as well as the band's sense of humor, because while on Spotify it's the 10th track, on the actual physical CD it is the 69th track. They just added 60 tracks of emptiness.
Just silence.
So that it jumps up to 69. And I thought at first my CD player was possessed, because I was like, why the fuck is it just skipping tracks?
So smart.
Just moving and moving and moving and moving, and finally it stopped at 69, and I was like, I don't get it. And as an adult, I got it. Anyway, Disgustipated.
As a sheltered teenager, I had no idea.
Disgustipated is not. Well, it's kind of like this weird, long, strange experiment of sounds. Except it has a really strange story to it too, and it goes something like this. And then the rest of the song, the lyrics are, "This is necessary, life feeds on life," repeated for about 10 minutes.
Jesus Christ.
To this really dark, driving, tribal drum pattern and bass line. It's fucking awesome. It's a great song, but a little detail in there to notice is that when he says, "Can I get an amen?" there are not only people saying amen, but there are also a lot of sheep baying in the background.
That's fucked up, man.
So the sense of humor's always been there.
Yeah.
And I think that's about as good a time and place as any to transition to the next album in their lineup, Aenima, which in itself is a bit of a joke.
Right.
It is a portmanteau, a combination of the Latin word anima, which means soul or spirit, I think, and enema, which is a douche in your butthole.
Yeah.
To clean it out.
A butt douche.
A butt douche, which most douches are.
Are they?
Yeah, I think I would say so. And well, I guess you could have a vaginal douche.
Yeah, I thought that was the
A
main.
nasal douche.
I always use a nasal douche.
An ocular douching. But yeah, so this album starts with a song called Stink Fist.
Yes.
Which is, at least on the surface, about fisting. Why don't we start there?
Yeah, let's do it. Incredible.
Fucking, I just, Tool to me is so fucking perfect. It's just so perfect. And even after all these years, these songs, every one of their songs just is so, it's aggressive, it's loud, it's in your face. The lyrical content is layered and nuanced and thoughtful and poetic, even when it's a joke about fisting.
Yeah, it's so layered and so well done that the song, the title gets banned from MTV. They have to call it something else.
Track 1, I think, is what they call it.
Track 1 or something like that. But the lyrics remain the exact same.
Yeah.
So all of the context and everything that he's saying is still there. They're like, well, we can't say stink fist.
Yeah.
And they're like,
the insinuation that you could be fisting somebody is a little too much.
Yeah, but these lyrics seem fine. I don't even understand.
Well, the lyrical content is really about, and it's even now, 23 years later,
Still accurate.
still very fucking accurate. It's about overstimulation and purposefully seeking out more and more
fucked up
stimulation
shit.
because it's just not enough. Whatever it is you're consuming is not enough.
Yeah, it's the story of Pornhub, essentially.
I was gonna say like social media, technology, Instagram, also definitely Pornhub.
It's definitely where it gets.
It's definitely Pornhub. It's not porn.
It's like the closest association. It's just saying that you experience one thing. Let's say it's, man, I always really wanted a North Face backpack for school, and you finally get it. And you're like, this is sick, and then that becomes the norm to you. Then the next thing's like, man, I'd really like to have a car to drive to school. And then you get the car. The car's cool. And then it's just like keeps escalating. And then you're like, man, I really need an SUV. And I need some dope ass Louis Vuitton luggage. And it's like escalating. And it's just like this never ending fucking staircase that ultimately ends with you just having to kill yourself.
Fisting yourself to death. Yeah, I think that's exactly what it's supposed to be. Yeah, and I think that's kind of the vibe around this album. It's a social commentary in a lot of ways. The following track after Stinkfist is, no one really knows exactly who it's about, but it's probably about L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology, which is an easy target. Again, they came up in LA. Scientology is massive in LA. So they probably saw a lot of that going on. Is there a particular song on this? Because I know where I would go next. If I was going to just only limit the tracks that we talked about very aggressively, I know where I would go next. So I'm curious where you would go next.
I mean, if I'm listening to it, I go 46 and 2. But I also like Hooker with the Penis a lot.
Okay, I feel like more people have heard 46 and 2. Hooker with the Penis probably doesn't get a lot of play, so we definitely should listen to that.
Alright, let's do it.
Let's do that.
Dude, it's so good. The message is so good. It's so good. And people still get wrapped up in it's the whole hipster thing, right?
Yeah. Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. And
it's so on the nose.
Again, it's another song where the title kind of betrays what it could be about. You're like, I have no idea what the fuck. Hooker with a penis? Like, what is it you're trying to say? Well, the entire thing's about like music industry from a creator's perspective interacting with fans. And even the lyrics right after we stopped listening to it are, all you know about me is what I sold you, you dumb motherfuckers. Yeah. I sold out long before you ever even heard my name.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's exactly what it's like. So, another thing that we talked about in the forgotten 8 minutes of this podcast was that they've had legal issues, like lawsuits that have delayed them releasing a new album for the past 13 years or so.
Christ.
Well, they have never had a positive relationship with the record industry.
That's crazy.
And Hooker with the Penis. I wonder why. Yeah, I wonder why. And Hooker with the Penis is a great example of that. They know that they had to sell their souls in order to even make it in the music industry. And then when fans listen to their, EP and then their first album and then their second album, they're like, man, you really sold out. You really made a much more like pop friendly album. They're like, well, you can go choke on a fat dick. I don't care. You have no idea what selling out even means.
Yeah.
As you sip a Coke.
Yeah, you sip a Coke, you have all the tattoos that we told you to fucking get.
Yeah. And it's great. It's a fucking great commentary on, just the industry of being a creator and interacting with people who think they own your creation because they're fans of it in some way. And that's exactly what the hipster model is. It's this idea that like, well, I knew about it before you did, so it's mine as opposed to yours. It's like, that's not how that works. We listen to it the same way.
If this is how you're going to measure all good things in your life, you're going to be pretty fucking disappointed.
Yeah, like, you're not going to be first in anything. It's just not the case anymore. So
yeah.
That's...
maybe if you like eating dirt, you can be the de facto for that.
I don't know, man. There's so many kids with pica out there who just eat dirt left and right. So there are a lot of songs left on this album that I think are arguably Aenima is one of their, like, you referred to it as their magnum opus album.
Yeah.
It could certainly be looked at that way. I personally think that the live versions of Push It and Third Eye that you can find on Salival are better than the album versions.
Mm-hmm.
And I would recommend that if you guys can find them, you'll probably find them on YouTube, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
They're not
that live version of Push It is amazing.
Yeah, it has a great fucking breakdown with tablas. It's really sick. And then the Third Eye, this is another thing about Tool. Like I said, like listening to it again as an adult, you start seeing this is where this idea of how I interact with the entire world came from. These between Push It and Aenima and Third Eye and their next album, Lateralis, like most of my worldview.
This has shaped me.
Most of my worldview is from what those songs in some way or another. Like it's been affected in some way or another.
What a trip.
So we won't listen to all three of them because we have to leave here at some point. But what we will do is listen to at least the first minute or 90 seconds or so of Aenima, the title track, because I think that's definitely worth going to. So that song's about LA being a shithole, and he hopes that it...
Yeah, more specifically, all about the people of LA and the culture and society within LA. Not so much the landscape.
Not so much the landscape. The landscape did nothing to him, but
it's really flat.
That's right.
And desolate.
It's a place filled with people who are trying way too hard to be something they're not, basically. And they focus on the wrong things that are ephemeral and fleeting and non-consequential in the long term.
Yeah.
And the end result of that is an entire society and culture around the city that's very vapid, self-obsessed, and douchey.
Yeah.
And he's definitely down with it just literally being flushed away into the ocean.
He's all about it. He's like...
And that's by the way, again, comes back to the idea of them being kind of really funny and friends with their peers and in the era of which they grew up in, which is Bill Hicks, the comedian.
Bill Hicks,
who is also featured prominently on Third Eye. He had a whole joke about Arizona Bay.
Yeah.
And the entire punchline of this song, Aenima, is that, and he says it multiple times, that people in LA better learn to swim because it's going to be flushed away sooner rather than later, and you're gonna just be underwater, and you better be ready for that catastrophe when it shows up.
Yeah, again with the layering, the fucking symbolism, the social commentary. It's an A plus song, if you will. You can listen to it and enjoy it, and just know that you probably are falling victim in that class of people that he's talking about.
Is this your favorite Tool album?
This is my favorite Tool album, but I can't speak confidently because I haven't listened to any of the other albums front to back.
So I'm gonna present this to you, and this is the first time I'm recording this. We're not gonna pre-pro any of this. Do you want to spend like another few minutes, talk a little bit more about this album, and then have like Tool Part 2 where we talk about the other two albums? Or do you want to try and like blitz through their other two albums here?
I say, let's blitz through those other two albums.
Alright, fair enough. Let's blitz through those other two albums. The other two albums we're speaking of are Lateralus, which came out in 2001, my personal favorite album of theirs. And
Blue Apocalypse, that's a dope ass name.
It is a dope name. It's actually named after Adams, the guitarist, his dog. Yeah. Anyway, this album, Lateralus, came out in 2001. It's yet another like 75-minute long, gigantic monster of an album. And it's got a lot of moving parts to it. This was kind of the point in which they graduated from being like a super angry metal band to like really leaning into the prog. And the topics of discussion here are about like, transmutation. They're about, the Fibonacci sequence is a really big part of this album.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's even people who talk about different ways of listening to this album. Like there's the track listing of these 13 songs, but they also feel like there's different ways of listening. There's different orders to listen to this based off of like the Fibonacci sequence, like what songs you listen to in what order, and it changes like the message of the song. Again, Tool nerds fucking insufferable. Seriously insufferable.
I mean, that's really cool.
It's cool, but it's a lot. It's a little too much. So
it's a lot.
It's a lot. So what we're gonna do, I'm curious, do you have a favorite song off this album?
Schism, man. The song that started it all for me.
Yeah, that was like
gave me nightmares. I don't know. Was that in the? That wasn't in the 8 minutes that never made it.
No. It might have been. Yeah, you mentioned how you listened to Schism. No, it wasn't. You talked about it when we record. That's right. Hell yeah, that made it onto this episode. That's sick. Okay, so Schism's the song. Okay, let's listen to Schism.
And then I can tell you what I think it's about, and then you can tell me what it's actually about.
All right, I don't know if I know what it's actually about. Let's find out. And then it goes into the big finale of that song. Yeah, it's fucking sick.
Yeah,
we should just do the rest of the songs like
just
that.
Just like it.
So why is that one your favorite?
It's a good question. I genuinely don't really understand much of the lyrics. They're just kind of all over the place, or like I can't decipher what he's saying. I think it just rocks. Yeah. I mean, from the very get go, it's like it does like the honey dicking sign of all good songs, like very like ding ding ding.
Yeah.
Like just like setting you up, like, hey, I know you've been waiting, but we're about to fuck super hard, and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
It feels like good like walkout music. Like if I were to have like a walkout song, this could be like one of them.
That's a cool. Okay.
Yeah, it just hits so hard. I like how that you brought up the bridge. Like that explosive ending is incredible.
Yeah.
I really like the effects that are on his voice. I don't know how he does it, but it sounds like he sounds like a witch doctor. There's like echoes and like it's just very what's the word, like atmospheric sounding his voice is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's it.
So the song.
If I had to take a stab at maybe what the meanings are.
Oh, hell yeah.
I mean, I feel like schism. I mean, the word itself, I think it means like there's a disconnect between two things,
yeah,
right?
Like a break, a disconnect.
It's almost like cognitive dissonance. Like you're like realizing, maybe like this is the belief that I've held on to, but now I'm being presented evidence of the opposite, and like now there's a schism. Like I don't know what to do with these two things. So that's kind of cognitive dissonance, but I don't know.
So the song in its like, if you take it out of the literal term, is very much about what he was saying during the bridge there, he says, "Cold silence has a tendency to atrophy compassion." That's basically is what those lyrics are, something like that. Which literally, and it ends with him saying between supposed brothers or between supposed lovers, going back and forth between saying that. So he's basically saying that, and a big part of this album is about using what you have been sort of like subjected to, whether it's anger or your experiences or what your day-to-day looks like, and turning it into a positive in your life. Like the entire first 5 songs of this album, 7 songs of this album are about that. And it's that same theme that gets repeated over and over again of like, your anger isn't controlling you. You know, you can turn it into a positive. But at the same time, this song specifically is speaking about the idea that, you know, the only way that you create these relationships is, or even foster any sort of real relationship between strangers or even very close people, is through communication. So that's what the music video is kind of about, that, but it's in that it's about that. In
it's like they're slowly
way.
turning into stone because they're not communicating.
And I'm really glad you actually mentioned Schism, because I wanted to talk about the makeup of the band for a second.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you know this, but the bassist off the first album is not the same bassist off the rest of the.
Oh shit!
So that
explains why it doesn't maybe sound as heavy.
It explains
no
why
offense to the group.
So the previous bassist was named Paul D. Moore. This new bassist who came on with Aenima, his name is Justin Chancellor. And you can immediately hear the difference, because while they had written a lot of the songs on Aenima, they hadn't quite finished them off yet. But this is the first album where you really start seeing his influence starting to come through, and the fact that as a band, as like a group, they work so well together in this album.
Okay.
That bass line in the beginning is fucking, it's like a perfect example how they use the bass in a way that a lot of bands don't. It's front and center, it's very in your face, it's driving the melody of the song, right, as opposed to just being part of the rhythm section.
Boom.
Yeah, I mean those chords in the beginning, that's all the bass. The first like dun 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 dun, that's all the bass.
Yeah.
And the guitar is actually like kind of complementing the bass as opposed to driving the main part of it.
Yeah, that would probably explain why I like Tool.
Yeah, it's fucking great.
And I like bass-driven rock bands.
It's fucking great. They also have another song on this album about the music industry. It's called Ticks and Leeches.
Fitting.
We're not going to listen to that one. Just know that it exists. It feels a little bit like a fucking travesty to skip over Parable and Parabola. But again, it's a 9-minute song. We don't have that time. So you got to listen to that on your own. I'm just going to say you have to listen to that one.
You got to listen to that one on your own.
That's a song about, you know, becoming more than what you are. But you have to listen to the title track, which is Lateralus. And it goes like this. Oh, so much to talk about with this one. You like this song.
Yeah, I was digging it.
Because you have ears.
Yeah.
And you exist.
I've never listened to it.
What?
I don't think I've ever listened to Lateralus.
Oh, fuck me. Okay, so
here's another, before we jump in, here's another detail. Alright? While everyone else didn't have Tool on their streaming services, I had Tool on my streaming service because I originally burnt it to my computer, uploaded it to Apple Music Match.
Shit. Okay.
So it existed, but I never grabbed all the songs from every album. Instead, I had like one CD that had select few on it.
Oh, interesting.
So I had like all of Aenima. I had Schism. I think I had 46 and 2s from Aenima.
Yeah.
I had some stuff from
Undertow.
from Undertow and what's Opiate. And I have like 2 songs from 10,000 Days.
Wow.
So yeah.
I would
Lateralus never got played because it's not in my library.
Oh shit. Wow. Okay, so this song is the song that introduced the Fibonacci sequence to everybody.
Okay.
The Fibonacci sequence is a really simple mathematical sequence, which basically says it's the number you're on plus the number right before it.
Right.
So 1
plus
is the
2
first
is
one.
3.
Right. 1 is the first one. The next one is 1 because it's 1 plus 0.
Right.
And then it's 3, and then it's 5 and 8, and then it's 13, 21,
math is
etc., etc. So the entire song is built around the Fibonacci sequence. And the Fibonacci sequence is interesting because it creates a ratio between numbers. But we don't climb over Sonny. Sonny's an old man. It creates a ratio between numbers called the golden ratio.
Okay.
That's where the Fibonacci sequence really made its mark, is because the golden ratio is like a proportions that you find in reality a lot.
Right.
It's like
with people's faces.
It's not just faces. It's like plants. It's not just plants. It's like cells. It's not just cells. It's like galaxies. All follow the golden ratio in some way or another.
It's terrifying.
It's really wild. And it's a very aesthetically pleasing thing. Mm-hmm. It just kind of happens to fit really nicely in things. It also functions to create a spiral that fits into the golden ratio called the golden spiral, which is why at the end of the song he's always talking about spiraling out. Anyway, my point is, here's how deep into the Fibonacci sequence this song actually gets. The verse is sang in the Fibonacci sequence. So I want you to listen to it again. And I want you to listen to how many syllables he's saying each time.
This is gonna be difficult.
So the verse of the song is written 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 5, 3 in the syllables that he's saying, which is the Fibonacci sequence, right? As crossfitters, by the way, we're very familiar with the Fibonacci sequence because of the Fibonacci workout from the CrossFit Games.
Correct.
Either way,
what a trip.
That is...
I wonder why it takes them so long to put out a fucking album. Like, how many Easter eggs do you have to hide in shit?
And that's why I'm saying people listen to this album in multiple versions of the track listing, because you can organize it. There's 13 tracks. So you can organize it in a lot of different ways depending on how you want to listen to it.
Of course there's 13 tracks.
But it's hard to talk about the song and what it's talking about and what it's really digging into without listening to the entire thing. I don't want to put everybody through that. You should certainly listen to it.
Okay.
It's a really meaningful song. I think it brings up a lot of really interesting points about what it means to be present, to sort of like choose the life that you're leading each day. It's a really positive, this entire album is an incredibly positive album. Probably the exception of Ticks and Leeches, which is just a double birds to the entire music recording industry.
Fuck their label, essentially.
Yeah. And if you get a chance, all 4 members of this band are virtuosos at what they do. They're just some of the best at what they do. And the most exceptional example of that is Danny Carey, who's the drummer.
Right. He has like a custom drum setup that's like insane, right?
He is one of the greatest drummers of all time. I don't know a lot of people that would argue with that. And if you would, you can go first. If you get an opportunity, if you have not yet had enough, go onto YouTube and watch Danny Carey play the drum track for this. There's a video of them from the studio recording of him putting the drum track together, and it is fucking amazing. Amazing. He's just so fucking talented, and the last like 3 minutes of the entire song are just furious drumming. Furious. It's awesome. It's one of the most impressive things I've ever seen, and he does that shit like nightly when they go tour.
That's insane.
It's really fucking crazy. Lateralus is also a song that really leans into the more progressive stuff that they do. Like, they talk about the Fibonacci sequence a lot, but it's also built into the music and the measures, the bars, the time, tempo, the rhythm, that sort of thing. All of it is kind of built into it. It's also a really good example of what they do with like polyrhythmic stuff, where like one member of the band is playing on one time signature and another member of the band is playing on another time signature, and then they end up meeting in the middle in like this really complicated but aesthetically pleasing sort of combination.
How the fuck's that happen?
It's really crazy. Polyrhythms are a weird thing. I remember studying them a lot because I was really confused by what I was listening to. A really simple polyrhythm goes something like this. So if you can tell, one hand is doing a 2 beat and the other hand is doing a 3 beat.
Right.
That's super simple.
Yeah, it looked like this hand was doing all the work and that one was just...
Right.
But it felt like when they were together, they were both doing a lot of work.
And what they do is like polyrhythms with like 5s and 8s.
That's
or
stupid.
like 7s and 9s.
Well,
and
they have to because
or like
Fibonacci.
7s and 12s. It's just shit that you'd never fucking do, but they do it anyway. It's great. Man, I can't believe you've never listened to this song before. You should definitely listen to it at some point.
All right, I'm gonna do it.
Now we've got to move on because we got to blitz through this last song.
You gotta blitz through this
last album, 10,000 Days.
In and out, 20-minute adventure.
So we opened the entire show up by playing Jambi.
Right.
Jambi. It's that really fucking metal ass song that we started the episode with. 10,000 Days is named kind of sort of after Maynard's mom.
Okay.
So she had, God, a better Tool fan knows this history better than I do. I want to say a stroke when he was a child. And for about 30 years, a little bit less than 30 years, for about 30 years, let's call it, he was sort of like stuck in this world where his mother, like the best thing in his life, was, incapacitated and not present.
Right.
And then she passed away sometime in the mid-2000s. And Marie is his mom. And that's why this album's called 10,000 Days. The title track is called 10,000 Days, but it's part 2, and part 1 is called Wings for Marie. And it's like an 18-minute opus.
Yeah.
About his mom and her trials and tribulations and the stuff that he went through. But when knowing that, by the way, if you go back and listen to the previous albums, knowing that story about him, the song Jimmy,
right,
on Aenima, is about Maynard James Keenan, Jimmy, being a child, in Ohio when that happened, I guess.
What a shithole.
I think a lot of Schism could potentially be about that as well. But either way, 10,000 Days. God, where do you start here? Let's, alright, we'll do one song.
One song?
We'll do one song. Do you have a favorite off of this album? I'm curious.
The only song that I have is the, 18-minute opus.
Okay.
Wings for Marie and 10,000 Days.
Okay, so...
But I listened to 10,000 Days over Wings for Marie.
I agree. 10,000 Days as a track is a better song. It just has a much more flowing rhythm to it. But either way, I was there, by the way, the first time they ever played it live.
No shit.
Yeah, in LA. There was like a big thing about whether they were ever going to perform it live because it was so emotional and his mother had just passed away.
Christ.
Yeah, it was really fucked up. What we're going to listen to is Rosetta Stone.
Okay.
And the reason we're going to listen to it is because it has everything that we've talked about up until this point about Tool. It's aggressive, it's loud, it's metal, it's progressive.
It's layered.
It's nuanced. It's referencing cultural stuff, in this case LSD and the invention of it.
Oh, wow.
And it's also kind of comedic.
Alright. Sign me the fuck up.
Okay, so this...
Man, he was talking really fast.
Talking very, very fast. He starts he just starts actually singing right after that. That's kind of like the beginning.
I felt like that's what was about to happen.
Yeah. Good feel.
Good feel.
Good feels.
I feel like I'm learning.
The story of the song is he basically, kind of, sort of, it's about LSD, but at the same time, it's about the character that's singing is this guy who is like no high school education, security guard at Area 51, basically. And then aliens, he like meets aliens.
Is that who's talking at the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it's supposed to be.
So he's like tripping the fuck out.
Yeah,
That's why he's talking super fast.
And he is chosen as the arbiter between humanity and aliens by the aliens.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fucking great. It's fucking great. And like I said, it's kind of a culmination of a lot of the stuff that they've done in the past. It's this really progressive, like, strange time signatures, shifting time signatures, but very fucking heavy, in your face, like metal. At the same time, kind of has like this joking, like, comedic value to it, but it's layered in that it's a story about kind of coming to terms with something you're absolutely unprepared to deal with, and trying to figure out how exactly to best deal with something like that.
In this case, aliens.
And in this case, it's being an uneducated person who's been chosen to be the sort of arbiter between humanity and aliens.
That's fucking insane. That sounds like peak Tool.
It is peak Tool. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like peak Tool, but it's
I mean, it sounds like it's the culmination of all
it
the
is.
stuff.
It is. And it kind of, it has a lot to it. I mean, it's like an 11-minute song, so it has a lot going on in it. Including some really fucking great guitar work and some really fucking great bass work and drumming. Well, let's skip around a little bit. Let's listen to like another minute or so of it, and then we're gonna wrap this thing up.
Goddamn shit the bed.
Yeah. The culmination of this story of being chosen as sort of the messenger between humanity and these aliens is that the character forgets what the aliens wanted him to tell humanity. And that's what he's saying. I can't remember what they said. I shit the bed. God damn it, I shit the bed. Yeah, so, and it has this really beautiful, bridge to it. It has a really beautiful bridge to it coming up.
The drumming was insane.
But yeah, that's
just like what we listened to.
It's absolutely incredible.
It sounded just some of the stuff sounded so much different. Like the music sounds relatively the same, but like how he's like singing and like performing sounds very different than anything I've heard from him.
He sings this through a loudspeaker. That's why it sounds that way.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's why it sounds that way. But yeah, man. I mean, this has been the longest version of this podcast we've ever done. The longest episode of this podcast we've ever done. I think it's a little bit over an hour. And
wow.
I could honestly,
I didn't feel like we touched on a whole lot.
We did not touch on. We could do at least an hour on each individual album, and I would easily be able to fill that. Just because there's so much to each part, and each one of them is so layered, so nuanced. There's so much to talk about. All the context around it. Whether it's personal or social, it's just there's a lot to this stuff, and I really strongly suggest that if you do have the opportunity, I mean, you don't have to listen to it all straight through, but the way they order it tends to run pretty nicely. There's quite a few tracks that are worth listening to.
It'd be really impressive to see if they're able to deliver an album like this with Fear Inoculum. I'm not saying that they have to be like beholden to their old albums, but something with this many like so much built into it. You know what I'm saying? Like each one of these songs feels like it would take the average artist a lifetime to put together, right? Yeah. From the intricacies between the time signatures and who's playing and when are they playing, from the verses and the meaning behind each and every verse. I just don't know how that's possible in today's like culture to deliver something like nuanced. Each one of these albums is kind of like, it's Tool, but they're unique in like their messaging. Like this one is, out of the four, I'd say this one has like the least amount of a message to me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not familiar with it. Mostly seems like it's about his mom. But the last one was very much like, we're pushing the agenda, we're like saying that you're not beholden to what has happened to you, that you can turn that energy into positive change. The one before it was like a commentary on LA, and then Undertow was like all about like hate, essentially, from everything that's happened to you. Yeah. So it's kind of weird. I feel like they're going to be like in uncharted territory with Fear Inoculum. I guess if the name Fear Inoculum indicates anything, I don't know. What do you think it means?
I think it's a lot more straightforward. That's one thing I've learned about Tool over the years. They're a lot more straightforward than people give them credit for. People think that they try to sort of like hide their message and, you know, be coy about what they're trying to say and what they're trying to do. And as an adult, as like a kid, I loved that because everything was open to interpretation. And there's so many things that are absolutely open to interpretation, but, you know, as an adult listening to their albums, the interpretation kind of falls away. The simpler read ends up being the more, I think, accurate read.
Yeah.
You know, taking the lyrics for their face value and kind of interpreting the symbolism in them as close to reality as possible tends to be
the best move.
The best move. And I think Fear Inoculum is really about that. It's about this like need for society and people in general to inoculate themselves from fear. But the way that you inoculate yourself from anything, inoculation requires you to have a small dose of it. Like have a dose of something that's bad for you in order to have a good outcome in the long term.
Right.
It's like the same way that vaccines work. You're inoculating yourself to a vaccine by exposing yourself to the contagion that you're trying to be immune from. And so I think that's the message of what Fear Inoculum is trying to do, at least what the song is trying to do, because it seems to be lyrically very much about this idea of like exposing yourself and coming out better because of it. So who knows if that's what they're actually going to do or not, but
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, Maynard never returns my texts.
It's very strange.
What a dick.
What a dick.
Either way, this has been a lot of fun. Like I said, I could spend hours and hours and hours talking about this band because it absolutely is my favorite band, bar none. Like
I'm totally down to come back to it. I mean, I feel like next week's going to be devoted to, or not next week, but the next episode is going to be devoted to Fear Inoculum. But maybe I don't know, who knows? Fuck it. I'm down to do another Tool episode. We have no agenda here.
We don't.
There's no sponsors.
No, there isn't.
We didn't sell out. God damn it.
Well, you didn't sell. I sold out. But
We both. How much did you get?
I got nothing. I got some free BCAAs.
Hell yeah.
Go ahead and hit them with your social medias, dude.
I'm at Chase504 on Instagram and on YouTube, where you can find the 8 missing minutes of this episode. If you were wondering what shenanigans happens,
it was a good 8 minutes too.
Depot,
it was a really good 8 minutes.
You're gonna want to tune in.
And you can find me at Arm & Hammer TV. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching and listening. Really appreciate it. We are, taking suggestions for albums and stuff. You can message either
you can
myself
keep sending
or
them, and we will just keep neglecting to do them.
It's true, because we always come up with something else that we want to do.
We won't talk about Post Malone.
No, never.
Probably not going to talk about Cardi B.
No, what? Why would I ever do that?
Yeah, probably not going to talk about. Honestly anything that gets written in.
No, unless it's good. So just keep trying, and maybe you'll suggest something good, and we'll actually do it. This last part where we exit here and there's song playing. Well, I'm gonna choose another song off of 10,000 Days. One thing that gets neglected a lot to mention is the fact that Maynard is a really talented vocalist, a very, very talented vocalist. So we're gonna finish this off by listening to The Pot. Thanks so much, folks. We'll see you guys later.